So for our panel discussion right now, I wanted to ask you something. Have you ever thought about the importance of organizational culture, mission, vision, and values in the light of the future of food that's being shaped by visionary entrepreneurs? The panelists that are going to discuss this today are from Clara Foods, Just, Gourmet, and Turtle Tree. They are Joe Krebs, Vice President of Discovery and Research at Clara Foods, Vivek Sharma, Director of Process Development at Just, Nicholas Maureen Forrest, co-founder and CEO at Gourmet, and Max Wright, co-founder and chief strategist at Turtle Tree. Our host today is Sujala Balaji, founder and CEO of Rain Fed Foods. So everyone, thank you for taking the time. Sujala, please take it from here.
Thank you, Anna. Pleasure to be hosting this discussion. Nice to meet you all. Thanks for joining, everyone. I would like to start off with maybe a quick introduction from our panelists. We're all creating world-changing companies, so maybe we can just start off with a quick introduction on what is it that drove you to either start the company that you're with or join the company that you're with. What are the elements that you looked for if you're an employee? And considering that the theme of today's discussion is company culture, how influential was culture when you started working for the organization, or how did you think about culture when you were starting the company from scratch? So if you can start off with that, that would be great. Max, can I pick you to start?
Yeah. Sure, absolutely. This is really exciting because I don't necessarily come from a science biotech background. So I think it's very relevant. So my past, I've been a CEO of a tech company for many years prior to starting this company along with my co-founder. However, as I've seen the sustainability issue get worse, I really wanted to make a transition and work more towards building a company that can actually have a major impact. But right from the beginning, we knew that the company culture is super important. So we have built a rock star team of not just great scientists, but business folks as well over a period of time that's helped to make that happen. But I think right from the beginning, it's about having the mission right, having everyone aligned with what the goals are. So it's been an incredible journey so far for us, but you're absolutely right. Early on, the goals must be set right.
The other interesting thing I noticed between all of us is how different our backgrounds are, given that we're now all in all protein. Max, you worked in a completely different industry, and Vivek, I think you come from the large corporate ag world, and Nicholas, yours was super fascinating. So can I ask you to go next?
Myself?
Yes, please.
Sure. So yeah, very happy to be here. Thanks for having us and Gourmet. Indeed, I don't also have a biotech background. My background is mostly in marketing, social sciences originally. And what led me to co-found this company was essentially a deep passion and a deep awareness on how we treat animals and what are the problems associated with animal agriculture as a whole. And everyone in the team is really driven. Some are here for the animals at first. Some are here because they're aware of the environmental impact on conventional farming. And actually, you can be here also just because you like good food and good meat and because you're a food lover. But definitely that common ground of working toward building a technology that has a strong impact has been key. And we made mistakes. We made hiring mistakes. So there was at some point not the best match with people, and we are first-time entrepreneur in our case at Gourmet with my two co-founders who are biologists, and that's essentially the trickiest part, I guess, when you're starting your first company is growing fast but still maintaining that cohesiveness and that shared beliefs and that sort of homogeneity between the people that are joining the company, so you can be very diverse, very different, but still working well together. And actually, the way we kind of learned about our culture was through these mistakes. When we noticed after a few months that it was not working so well with someone in the team, with a scientist, an engineer, and we reflected on why is it not working so well, that's also helped us a lot define who we were, because it was working very well with some people, slightly less with others, and really it helped us define our common identity. Well, that might be a big word, but essentially our common ground and our common beliefs and the characteristic of our personalities, expectations that are just allowing us to work well together.
Thank you, Nicholas. There is so much to unpack there as we get the conversation going. Vivek, can I invite you next, please?
Sure. As you mentioned, worked for a big company and in Bay Area, and all around us, this revolution was happening: plant-based protein, sustainable food sources. So I wanted to see if I can make a big impact because that revolution was happening. Even you're a part of it or not. So it was a good opportunity for me, and also this statement, this mission statement is easy to explain to my kids where I work. So that was also one of the reasons to easy to explain what I do here. So, and as a culture, what we are looking for, when you are in this entrepreneurial environment and trying to accomplish new things and develop new tools. So as an organization, we need to foster creative thinking. And for us, it's all about people first, building the diversity, collaboration, agility, and flexibility. And we also look for this, hands-on attitude that people can roll up their sleeves, in a startup culture and get things done.
Thank you, Vivek. You brought up a good point, and it was interesting to hear how you mentioned that it's easy to tell your kids what you do or help them understand. And as we're talking about the future of the food industry, and what we're doing is connected to leaving impact for the next generation. Personally as well, it was a big driver for me to leave my corporate role and become an entrepreneur, because I was creating products that were not necessarily super healthy for people or the planet. And there was a point where I did not even let my own daughter eat the products I was creating. And that's when it was like, do I want to continue doing this for the rest of my life? And it just, there was such a misalignment in values when you hit that stage, and was a big driver for us founders in that way to shaping the future of what we eat. And for the next generation, I think that's what, especially students, young students and young people and young students these days, they are wanting to work for companies that have impact. It's not just about the paycheck anymore. It's about purpose and the personal impact they want to leave on the planet. So I think that's evident from what we're going to talk about today. Joel, I just caught the tail end of your keynote earlier, where you mentioned right people, and having right people and the right environment is important in creating this impact. I'm assuming that people got to hear your keynote, and you don't need a second introduction. So sure. I'd love to ask, how do you define right people and the right environment? What sets the stage based on your experience in the industry?
Yeah. So to me, a key point is intentionality, right? So you need to be able to articulate what is your culture. I mean, a classic question during an interview process, someone will say, what is the culture at Clara Foods, for instance? And I think it makes a difference to be able to articulate that quickly and easily, to then look for the people that resonate with what we are at Clara Foods. And so to me, the point there then is, again, some of the slides I showed are straight out of our all hands presentations. So people see these things on a regular basis at Clara. These are things we talk about. And so we are intentional about the culture we have. And therefore, when we interview people, that comes across. And we hear that from candidates, obviously, that then join the company, that they were really impressed with what they could see during the interview process of our culture. And I think it's that virtuous cycle of, because we're doing great things, we can attract great people. Because we attract great people, we can do great things, and et cetera, et cetera.
And thank you. And how do you define culture when you're a brand new organization starting from scratch? What goes into whether defining culture or establishing that culture at an early stage?
Yeah, I think it's about defining what you consider, what you find most important, right? And so when I joined Clara Foods, we were a small company. I had previously been at a very large company, but I over the years, I have worked in sustainability for many years now. And so to me, the sustainability factor is an obvious one for all of us in the food tech space, all protein space. But I think it's then being able to say, what is it that we find most important? And when I joined Clara, one of the things I brought was a sense of teamwork. And again, as I mentioned in my introduction, I've worked in the industrial biotech space since 2003. I've been part of commercialization of new to the world protein technologies since that time. And what I've seen is again, when we're delivering these new to the world technologies, I can't predict exactly where the breakthrough technologies will come from, but what I know is having a diverse team where everyone has a chance to share is what I've seen it delivering success in the past, and I see it now time and again at Clara Foods. And so to me, it was important early on to establish that sense of teamwork, of one team. The setting our egos aside, it's not about who's right, it's about what is the right answer.
Thank you. I just want to mention to join any or jump in, panelists, Max, Vivek, and Nicholas. Nicholas and Max, as you are also co-founders, how did you go about establishing culture or hiring the right people, especially the early employees? You're hire one, hire two. How did you approach that?
Well, if I can start, I can tell you there's never a perfect start. So as Nicholas mentioned, we all have a little bumps in the road when we get going. But I can tell you that we have to learn very fast. That's the thing with startups. You have to learn very quickly. For us, what happened with us is we ended up bringing on an amazing HR business partner once we made our first few small mistakes early on. And that actually changed everything. Our HR business partner is a rock star, and she came on and built an entire structure and helped us to really set a lot of our mission, a lot of our passion, put it together in a plan and translate that into a culture. And it's worked out great. So I think that I always say, bring in the best people who are going to help lay that foundation early on. And that's something that we're very fortunate to be able to do. But it wasn't easy. And you have to make certain mistakes to be able to learn some of that, especially if you're either a first-time founder or even if you're a repeat founder. There's no magic success formula that's out there. So that's what I can say.
Yeah, same on our case. I mean, it's really like long-term relationship, whether it's friendships or couple relationships. You have that honeymoon phase when you onboard people, but then it really goes up into the first problems that arise and the first frictions in the team and how are they handled. And when we realized that we had done mistakes in terms of hiring, it was mostly with people that were not really good at handling this kind of difficult situation, whether it was because they had too much ego or they were really bad at essentially communicating and overcoming difficulties. And going and shaping a bit the definition of our group through this kind of mistakes that Max also mentioned helped us really define a common basis and a common foundation. And we essentially have 5 values at Gourmet. The first one is really about playing collective. So really putting the team efforts first and not your personal agenda, obviously. The second one will be about being really happy with ownership and owning your task and being super autonomous, because we are a young startup. You need to get a lot of stuff done and quickly and learn fast. The third one would be about being egoless and also able to communicate quite smoothly with the team, putting the ego aside. The first one is really about generating trust around you. And the fifth one will be about the positive mindset, because the challenge is so high and we have to climb such a high mountains that if you don't come here with a strong sense of positivity and audacity, then you're just going to fuel a potentially toxic team dynamic. So we learned that through mistakes. It didn't work the first time, but we really try to build a very strong foundation of that. And now it's not only values, it's not only words that are still painted on the walls or that are just on slides, but values actually mean something that you value, like that you give value to, that you can reward. So we have also built a great rewarding system where these kind of behaviors are not only encouraged but also promoted and rewarded. For instance, we have variable compensation in all the salaries package that we offer to the team, and not all of that is linked to the actual outcomes, but a lot of that is also linked to the mindset and the behaviors that the people bring to the team. So again, that's really key to encourage and not only being part of an onboarding toolkit that people would only read once when they just join the company and then they forget.
And so John, I have to tell you, when you have all of these things that Nicholas just mentioned, all these different pillars or so forth that you'd love to see, when you actually see it implemented and you see it working, it's one of the most beautiful things ever. When you see your team working together, when you see everyone sharing ideas, when you see that ownership, when people are waking up in the middle of the night sending you messages, they're like, come on, get some rest. But they are so passionate about what they're doing and they love it. That is such a beautiful thing to see. And that's something that I'm so proud of when we go to work.
Yeah, so Sujala, to re-stress the point the team has made, that it's all about people, finding the right people, hiring the right people. We have open positions, we have the urgency to hire, but we also have the patience to wait for the right candidate. We have to go deeper than the resume. We have to sometimes look at the approach to the problem solving more than the technical skills there. To get the right people in the team and create an environment that we can disagree. When the push comes to shove, we can propose our opinions, disagree in the decision-making team meetings, and come out and still have a coffee together. Hire the right candidates and have them grow in the same direction. That's what it takes to do new things, because the problems are not easy. We are doing new things. So it definitely takes a lot of discussion, a lot of patience, and the technical skills to get there. So it's all about the people, hire the right people, create the right environment, and let them do what they do.
Vivek, if I can add on to that a little bit, what you just mentioned, as you mentioned, look deeper than the resume or their CV. And for us, what that's meant is, you have to let some of these folks shine. You can't limit them just based off of their resumes. And we've had some folks who've come in as a BSc, and you would think you wouldn't expect so much from that person. And however, they become the star of the entire company and end up as the backbone of the company. And I think this is also what these startups allow for a lot of talent to do. They allow them to grow at a rate that's much faster than working at much larger MNCs that are out there. So this is a huge opportunity for young folks to get involved and be able to maybe accelerate a little bit faster down their career path and maybe explore as well.
Yeah, true, Max. And one thing I want to add to that as well, when even I was hired, we have a really great HR partner. We talked about intent and passion. That is something difficult to sometimes interview for, but if you do find that, that really pays off.
Excellent points. Starting with seeing mistakes as lessons to going beyond the resume and providing people the the right environment so they can excel, and giving them the independence or the freedom to just stretch outside of the resume and the responsibilities, I think is key. Considering that we have a lot of students in the audience, if they are applying for jobs, what can they do to stand out, or what can they do when they're still in the university that will help them find jobs in your organizations? Let's say you get 10 resumes, and I'm sure based on my experience, and you would have felt the same too, there are one or two that will instantly stand out. What are some of those elements, and how can we encourage people to just not just necessarily follow the path that everyone does, but how can they make themselves more attractive for companies that they want to work for?
I can go first. I would say hands-on experience is something that we look for. So if you have a lab professor that is doing a research in something that you like, please go and work there and gain as much as experience you can. Also, project management skills. If you can handle a couple of things going on at the same time, that's going to help as well. So hands-on experience in the field that you're interested in is what we look for, and handling multiple projects or a couple of projects at the same time that we look for.
Yeah, I think to build on what Vivek was saying, lab real life experience is key. I think also having a track record of success, even as an undergraduate student, it's still possible for people to demonstrate. I took on this challenge and I was successful at delivering, you name it. But I think being able to show that it's not just simply I took these classes and got grades, but rather here's what I've been able to do, and being able to articulate that in their resume in some ways to highlight the skills that they've acquired. And the question I often will pose to people is, what is your superpower? What is your brand? What thing, if we hire you, what is it we're getting? Not that is unique in the world with you, but rather, what is it you're best at? And when, again, a 21-year-old should be able to articulate that. And I find, when I find people that are able to tell me what their brand is, their superpower, it's pretty obvious that that's somebody we want.
I think both Vivek and Joel mentioned very, very much the key highlights, having enough of that experience, and a whole lot to add to that. I think being able to articulate some of the successes that you've had in the past. And you're right, Joel, even a 21-year-old or even 18-year-old has had, if they look hard enough, they've had some success in doing something. And if you're able to articulate that, let us know what your game plan was, how you did it, and what challenges you ran into, how you overcame it. These are the type of things that founders want to hear, because we're also facing some of those same challenges. And if we can see that you've been able to do that, I think we have a much easier time fitting you into our teams.
Yeah, I relate to that also, building a relationship early on. That's things that we have seen in the past, people engaging with us, although we are not hiring, and obviously just sending regular updates or just checking if there was a new opening. And that really helped and smoothened the whole process. And we are working on such a small field at this stage, and with such a high level of passion, that people with prior commitment or interest in that specific field, for instance, now in many countries you have organizations, nonprofit, that are putting a lot of efforts on advocating for cellular agriculture, for instance, or alternative proteins in general. So as a student, just engaging with this type of nonprofit or association, just to start building a new network and to start also refining where you want to contribute in that specific field, that's something that we deeply value, because the strongest the sense of purpose is communicated, well, the likeliest we are to essentially move forward in the application process.
That's great. I also like, Nicholas, when you said start building that relationship, because ultimately, if you want to work for a company, it's almost like you have to really show them that you're interested in the company. So just even staying in touch, even if there is not an opening at this time or they're not hiring you for whatever reason, but just staying in touch, providing them constant updates on what's happening, or also engaging them wherever you can in what you're doing, I think is a really great way to build relationships. Eventually, whatever industry you're in, it's about people, and people equals to relationships that will go a long way and helps you shape the individual you become in both personal and professional life. So yeah, love that point. Thank you. How, just want to kind of dial this back for a second. What does a hiring process look like? Because we have 4 incredible companies here. Would love to go a little bit deeper into understanding, how do you approach hiring? Like, what's the step? Are there like screening questions initially that applicants have to go through, or is it a phone interview to screen out? And then, like, what does the process look like for people who are curious?
Sure. At Clara Foods, we, as I presented, we have a well-defined the cultural fit that we're looking for. So we start off with one of our HR specialists doing a phone interview to look for that cultural fit. If we then see that person meets the basic, they know something about Clara Foods, they exhibit elements of the values that we talked about, then we do a quick phone interview to look at technical fit. And then at that point, we currently either bring the person in for an actual in-person interview with the team, or do a virtual interview depending on location and their comfort level with current pandemic circumstances. And then at that point, we evaluate a variety of candidates from those panel interviews and select the best candidate at that point.
Yeah, I think for us, it's a very similar process. We have an incredible chief people officer, and she would be engaging with a candidate first, just to once again to understand if we're aligned, if their motivation is right, and their background fits what we're looking for. And from that point, we have the rest of our executive team that also likes to meet with these folks. We want to make sure that culturally they're the right fit, and they have the right energy. They mesh well with the rest of the team, because as an organization, a lot of our some of the most the newest folks still interact with the senior team very, very often. And we want to make sure that that's right. And at the last stage, the founders, so we also get very much involved in learning about these folks and seeing if they're the right fit. And the process is actually streamlined at this point. And if everything works out, then we bring them on quite rapidly.
So I can go next. For us, we work with our HR manager. For us, the HR team is a business partner. We sit down, we define the role, because the role can be an experienced one or a fresh graduate, and we advertise it. Then, similar to the processes that has been described previously, our HR manager would go and do the screen first, have a phone interview. We strive, in that stage that the candidates understand us. If they are a good fit for them and they are a good fit for us. And for us, transparency is huge. So we share the role, the requirements really well at that stage. And after the first screening, the HR manager will screen the candidates out, and the hiring manager will receive the resumes and the next level candidates. And then we go forward with individual interviews or a team interview, depending on the candidates. And in this environment, it's either like virtual, I think, as Joel said, or if needed, a site visit happens.
Yeah, in our case, we really value the site visit. That's really a huge part of the process, because the first screening interview, yes, would kind of pre-validate a potential cultural fit, but spending 3-4 hours with someone live in the lab meeting the other person, meeting the other teams. That's something with really high value in further assessing that cultural fit, because that, I mean, yeah, you're just essentially interacting with the rest of the team. And we also offer that to the applicants so they can really relate also to the team and see what's really the atmosphere, what vibe do they sense when they're there in the office, in the lab. And it also helped them confirm their decision, because it's not only in our side that we need to confirm, but it's also them having seen how it works in the company with their own eyes, having spent a few hours there, they can really further and finally confirm whether or not they're interested with the position.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing the insights. How easy or difficult has it been in hiring scientists in particular? Because we're talking about food scientists here. This event is about food scientists getting hired. So, and has there been challenges, or do you foresee any challenges or opportunities that are untapped in hiring the right people?
I can share a few words here. Regarding food scientists, it's really hard to find people that are essentially at the crossroad of biotech and meat science. And I think most of our companies are in this sweet spot. And we are actually shaping and implementing a sort of training for them. For instance, we have a partnership with the Technical University of Dublin, where we have someone that is doing a PhD, an industrial PhD there. And this person is essentially building the knowledge that is required by the entire field of cell-based meat. So I would say that, yes, it's hard, but it's specifically hard to get people with that area, that specific area of expertise that is really relevant for companies that are essentially doing animal proteins without the animals, because there are differences between conventional proteins, conventionally produced proteins, and the proteins that we are producing through our biotech platform. And understanding that gap and how it works and how we can match the complexity of meat products that are conventionally produced, that's at the forefront of what we need to build, and where we need to see universities jump in and kind of build new grad programs and new courses on that. So
yeah, and for Turtle Tree, although we are a Singapore headquartered company, our R&D headquarters is now here in UC Davis area. And if you guys may know, UC Davis is one of the very few that has a grant from the government around cell agriculture. They also have a significant history around food and food science. So there's quite a few graduates that come out of UC Davis as food scientists. So we've been very fortunate. Our team here has been able to bring on some amazing folks, amazing PhDs very recently. And I think Nicholas is right. When you have a university or educational programs that can educate and start preparing some of these young folks, those areas are going to have a lot more talent in those areas. So for us, UC Davis has been incredible, and this area has been quite incredible. There's a tremendous amount of talent around Northern California.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that, Max. Again, for Clara Foods, we've benefited definitely with the graduates coming out of UC Davis, as well as Cornell. But I think I also want to support what Nicholas was saying, where at the same time, part of this has been we are developing brand new technology. And so finding people that we have not found people that have the exact experience we have at Clara Foods. But again, it's been more about looking for the people that have demonstrated their abilities. So we're not looking for somebody that's already worked with recombinant egg white proteins, because that really isn't out there as a thing. So it's more about people demonstrating that they know how to be good experimentalists, that they have a good understanding of food science and protein science. And again, having the basic skill sets are what we're looking for, and that track record.
Yeah, for us, the biggest challenge is for hiring that specific, super specific skill sets. I think what the team has said before, we are doing new things that has not been done before. So it's not like you can find that experience out there, but people who have demonstrated problem-solving skills in the same technical field they're always a good first step. What we do is that, in that first set of interview, that's where we leverage, right, to understanding the differences of where they're coming from. Sometimes we'll get candidates from a big biopharma, and coming from that to a startup. So we want to make sure to explain what a success looks like, how they can play a big role. Um, it's not, just about hiring the right people, but also setting them up for success. And it all starts from that first contact, in the interview process. As I mentioned before, we have open positions, so we have urgency to hire, but also to patient, also need patience to wait for the right candidate.
I hear that, echo that. It's also interesting that universities. It's obvious that universities definitely can do more to help prepare students for the future by either offering courses or programs where they can gain hands-on experiences. Or is there other than undergrad or grad programs, how can universities help accelerate this big transformation or shift towards the sustainable future of food? Is it on them to like approach startups or companies and create that relationships and take it from there, or should it come from companies like ours and or organizations like where or who is taking responsibilities, or are there examples, are there good models that one can learn from? What have you seen in coming with us coming from different countries as well? It would be nice to share either what we have seen or what we potentially see as opportunities.
So I think it's both. Not only the universities should approach the startups, and innovative companies should work with the universities as well. There should be projects that students can participate in. So it goes both ways, because we are also looking for a talent, the right candidates. So if we have that exposure to the universities, we are going to get the right candidates, because that is always the struggle. If you're doing new things and innovative things, it's not something that is right away available for the candidates coming in. So it goes both way. I would say that we should work with the universities, and the universities definitely should work with the startups to expose the students in the programs to real world problems, the real world technologies.
Yeah, I would say at Clara Foods, we've had some really good experiences with the University of California systems, where several professors have very active guest speaker systems where they bring in people from industry to present to students, and then they also give students team projects. Again, that's how things work in industry and a lot of places in the professional world now. And I think the more the universities can do with those sorts of real world opportunities to hear from companies, as well as then to problem solve as students in the way we do in industry, makes a big difference. And I want to call out UC in particular for doing a really good job, both at Davis and at Berkeley, with reaching out to industry and getting industry involvement in the curriculums.
Yeah, and if there are other startups, and we're fortunate, Joel and I were very fortunate. We are here in close to Davis, close to the Bay Area, but a lot of startups around the world. If you're looking at talent and you're looking at it being very difficult to bring outside talent in, there's a university always close by. I think most universities are always open to developing programs or developing a system where they can help to create some of that talent. So I would always urge for companies and so forth to maybe connect with other industries and so forth and come together to start building up this talent pools locally. This is a new area. I mean, as Vivek mentioned, this is a very, very new area, new science. applications for the kind of work that we're doing. And I think there's a lot of opportunities out there if the companies do connect up with these research institutes.
For sure, and in our case, what we've seen working also was to leverage the alumni network, and having the young graduates that are essentially joining us. We really encourage them to keep building strong relationship with their university. For instance, we had one food engineer coming from a gastronomic school in Spain, and he went back there to give a course on cultivated meat. And all of a sudden, we had multiple applications from the crowd because the students were really excited about the technology and the prospect. So I think that's one of the easy win to really build this alumni network and really encourage your young hires to go back to the school, don't forget their university, and try to kind of spread the good word about their company or their field.
Yeah, great point. Alumni network definitely is an underappreciated network. I think we can all tap into. We're almost coming close to time, so I just want to wrap this discussion with maybe a bit of a fun question. Some do's and don'ts, or maybe more don'ts that you would like to share in terms of whatever stage of career one is at. Some of the things when you're doing while reaching out, either just a cold LinkedIn or sending a job application and then following up. What are some things that are recommended that can set you apart, or what are some things that you should not do that you have seen that could make your or be seen as a negative in particularly with hiring process? Mainly because we have students in the audience. I feel like we personally, as entrepreneurs and professionals in the industry, we do learn from our mistakes. So maybe they've made some mistakes and they can learn from it.
I think something that I would add. Go ahead.
I would say for one of the don'ts is don't apply for 5-6 open positions if they're in different fields, because internally it can show up that this person has also applied. If you're applying in process, you're applying in the food science also, or applying in engineering also, it kind of shows up that way. So don't apply. See where you are interested in, look at the job description where a really good fit, and apply for that job.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, actually, very similar to what Vivek just mentioned. Be more intentional about the roles that you're looking for. Take the time to be more laser focused, because this is going to be your future. This is going to be your career. This is going to be your life. Don't just spam out your CV to 100 different companies for every position. Focus more on where you think you're going to see your future, and try to articulate that as well when you're sending this out to the target company that you want to be a part of. This is a family that you're joining. This is a company you're joining. This is a culture that you're joining. And the more you can focus on making that clear, I think it'll be easier for you to get that job as well.
I would say two things to complement on that. I think we've never been annoyed by someone who is really insistent, at least for the first phase of the application, that is kind of adding all the team members on LinkedIn, trying to send friendly messages to the team. It's something that I wouldn't maybe not have dared when I was a student and I was looking for my first position. But I think that's something that's really strong. And in our Slack channel, whenever there's someone that is kind of contacting everyone in the company, we're like, oh, this person is really motivated at joining us. So please do not hesitate to do that. Do not hesitate to add the team on LinkedIn, to chat with team members, potentially get feedback also on the team from team members that are willing to talk to you. And number two, I think also, as we discussed, we all have this kind of first screening interview that is essentially assessing the cultural fit. So really try to prepare your narrative, really be good at describing what really drives you, and not go into technical description of all your experiences, all your technical skills, but kind of find essentially the common guide all through your experiences. Even why did you choose this university? What is driving you? Yeah, that is making a huge difference for the first impression and that first conversation that we all have with with people.
I just very quickly, I want to say I totally agree with everything that was just said as far as do's and don'ts. LinkedIn is a great opportunity to reach out to people, be intentional, don't spam. It's pretty obvious when someone sends out their resume to 5 different open positions at the same company. But at the same time, I think sending your resume to 5 different people at the company to try to get in the door, that is definitely recognized as this person is thoughtful. They really want to be at Clara Foods, as an example. So I do think that it is important to demonstrate that you really want to come to this company. And one way to do that is, again, reaching out to people at the company through LinkedIn and sharing your resume. So people should continue to do that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all the insights. This has been a fun and interesting discussion, and I hope that attendees got to learn a lot from this conversation. And thank you all for joining, and the ProteinX Foundation for organizing this event and the discussion.
Thank you all.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Good luck,
you.
everyone. Yeah.
Good luck. And don't hesitate to join our booth if you're interested in joining us. We have exciting openings.
Same for Clara Foods. Plenty of openings.
Thanks, guys.
People get a lot of LinkedIn messages, I guess.
Exactly. Looking forward to it.
Yes. Thank you for the time, everyone. It was great to see how culture is defined and how the journey to reach this point was for each one of you. So thank you for the time.